Beautiful. And so with this week's theme being sex, we're going to, get deep, and it's going to be juicy. So I'm so juicy, like my eyes are all puffy from crying already. Michael and I had a beautiful morning process that we get to, in the afterglow of, come and share some harvest. So we are going to begin with a little meditation, but I have an icebreaker that may involve you getting your journal or your work table. So if it's at hand and you need to grab that, go ahead and grab it. But if not, you'll have a minute to do that after the meditation. So I'll just say, we'll, after meditation, go into that icebreaker and the roadmap, and let's go ahead and drop it. I guess I need this meditation more than anyone. So I'm going to invite you to join me with whatever micro movements your body needs, closing your eyes, deepening your breath, and follow the exhalation wherever it takes you. Really notice where your exhalation naturally moves. So follow it all the way to the ground of your being. Just relax into the exhale, allowing it to take you into a deeper sense of self. And then notice if there's more micro adjustments so that you can relax into self-connection. And following that sovereign thread down through your roots, down through your tailbone, dropping a taproot down into the earth for the next 3 to 5 breaths. Extending into the nutrients of the earth's field. Feeling also how these sensitive roots connect you to all living things. Particularly how you intertwine or bond beneath the what's seen, that unseen bond with your beloved. Feel how that nourishes you. Drawing this earth energy up the base, through your healthy trunk or central axis, straight to the heart. And as you penetrate the energetic heart with your awareness, Allow yourself to expand and light up and feel your interconnectedness at the heart level with this beloved, this life partner. And how that overflows to all of those that you love. So feeling the whole intimate network web light up and extend transpersonally to the heart of humanity. And offering that up with the next 5 breaths to the upper, branching out through the top chakras, the crown. So as you branch out, you're aligning with, dancing in the cosmic energies, and just allow yourself to be informed by the celestial bodies. Really drink that in with the next few breaths. And now I'm going to ask you, if you're not already touching your partner, to just extend a hand or whatever's comfortable so that you really feel the energy between you and the spark of life force in the physical body. As we're breathing down from the cosmos, I invite you to feel the life force energy that goes all the way down through to the earth. And take a few breaths to feel the erotic and ecstatic current that moves from heaven to earth. It's not just located in the genitals. Like, really allow yourself to feel how the life force energy is sexual energy in every chakra. And take a few breaths to run that energy, to just follow its flow. Deepening your breath to expand the pleasure of it. Let it open all of your senses, your sense of sound and the taste in your mouth. And let your senses become alive. Little hairs at the end of your skin, which increases the sensual perception of touch everywhere. And from this aroused state, or the state of permission for arousal, I invite you to listen for guidance. Listen and feel, who would you be if you were fully sexually expressed in this partnership? Take a few breaths to really vision. If the life force energy could have its way with you and your partner, what would that look like? There were no obstacles. It was just the evolutionary interpenetration of life between the two of you. Full and free. 3 to 5 more breaths, just visioning that. And then we're going to open the circle with the sound together. We're going to chant, whether your sound is on or off, it doesn't matter, but really resonate with your partner. And the sound is yum. And just feel that in your body. Inhale. Oh, welcome. Beautiful. So what I'd love to do for our opening check-in is one sentence transmission of like, ooh, if we were fully sexually expressed, this is, what came through. And it can be what came through the meditation, or it could be what you're working on, on your work table. But ultimately, you might take this insight that you just got and add it to your work table. So it's in the area of sexuality. What, would you need to be fully expressed in your partnership? Okay, so that's what I'm framing, and it's just a little, like, let's put that all on the table before we dive in really deep around. I think sexuality as a topic is probably the deepest and the widest. In other words, it's a very, very intimate thread to follow in your partnership. So we have no idea who logged on first or last, because I think we were last. And that means we're just going to call on people randomly. Do you want to do the
first?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I was fully sexually expressed, I think there'd be a number attached to it, like having sex probably like 5 times a day. That's what kind of came up for me. So, yeah.
Excellent. And I'll go last.
and Greg Rex will go next because you're in first in our screen.
Okay. If I was fully expressed sexually, I would be unlimited.
Good. That beats number.
Yeah. That's better than my 5.
Infinite. Beautiful. Thank you.
Nice.
You want to do James next?
Yep. James.
And that means Sharmila, you're next.
I think full sexual expression for me looks like 2 to 3 times a day and a lot of oral sex and foreplay before, during, and after.
Nice. Sharmila?
I'm going to refrain from talking because of the children that keep going in and out of the room.
Okay. Sharmila's in.
Can you just do like hand signals for us?
No. Thanks. We're glad that you're on with us.
Yep.
Lisa and Greg. And then and then we'll go to Marina and Greg after that. Okay.
If I were fully sexually expressed in this relationship, it would be super fucking playful and spontaneous, and like Monica and Chandler from Friends. Totally binging on with Bella.
Yay.
Nice.
Yeah. For me, the full expression would mean that all the crap that I'm kind of dealing with on my own would be cleared up. Because it serves as a resistor to connection. So, yeah, just feeling content.
Thanks for owning it and being responsible. Thank you.
Yeah, nice. How about
Marina, we said.
Oh yeah, Marina.
All right. So for me, it would be, well, in the partnership with Greg, it would be really like deepening into like having more consistency versus just this like occasional times that we get together. And then having like a pod of like amazing lovers that we can also like invite into our love container.
Yeah, yum. Thank you.
Nice. Greg went already. Yeah, Greg? Yeah, he said his was universal.
Oh, and we didn't go to Marina. Sorry, I tried to do the couples together, but
we're just mixed. We're just mixed up. So Tal and Alex.
So I mean, I feel when we are having sex, it's like I'm fully expressed. I don't feel held back in any way. I think where I feel held back sometimes is when, you know, if I want to connect with someone else and there's an agreement that the two of us jive on another person coming in, but I feel pretty well expressed and very well connected. And
I think to feel in full health, what to feel.
Yeah, good one. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jonathan?
It came up for me that be more playful and fun throughout our relationship, and kind of flirty throughout the day.
Woohoo! I like it. Thank you. Okay, all right. And I have mine. So there's a veil for me of like pressure or expectation that I think would drop, and that veil is it's my own like. So another way of saying it that's in the unconditionally positive is I would be more present during every lovemaking act all the time. So it's about presence. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got an exciting metaphor for this week.
Yeah. Okay.
We had so much fun. Talk about playful. We had so much fun coming up with this metaphor.
Yeah. Yeah. So the metaphor is around plants. You know, we live here in San Diego, which is basically a desert, and so we brought all this water in to have the plants that we have around us. But there's a plant, and you can imagine if you had traveled to Japan, right, and you're going through the land of Japan, and you have sushi, and they bring you that wasabi, right? Everybody knows, what that's like. Well, it turns out that wasabi is the most difficult plant in the world to grow. Okay, it requires a lot of water. It needs a special environment in riverbeds. It's all of this stuff, and only the best
master gardeners.
Yeah, the master gardeners of Japan can even make this stuff. And even the wasabi that we have is mostly
horseradish and food coloring.
Yeah, it's like Coke that's been cut with, I don't know, aspirin or whatever. It's that's the wasabi that we're used to. But let's say you fell in love with this. You feel that you want to be the master gardener, and so you brought one of these wasabi plants, back from Japan, and now you've got it here in San Diego, which is a freaking dry desert, and you're trying to make that plant grow, and so you're like, you have to do all of these special things to make it flourish. That's the way our sex is here. Okay, in the Western world, sex is we're in a desert of sexuality. We're in a place where the church and the state and everybody else in our families and tradition from now thousands of years is sex negative.
And more specifically to us, we're a really rarefied group in that we've already mostly created sex positivity around us. So we've got like the conditions, but we're choosing this rare exotic plant that takes high cultivation because we're in primary partnership that will often wither and especially as like, oh, we got other lovers. Like it's so easy to have the new, exciting, hot experience with new and other lovers, but to actually like have and cultivate ongoing, beautiful sexual energy with your primary, it needs a tending to, because, ironically, other things will, like the finance plant might grow, or we've got like the roommate plant might grow, but the sex part, if it doesn't, it'll just like wither. Mm-hmm. And so we had a lot of fun with like, okay, well, what's the rarest, most difficult plant to cultivate? And we found out it was wasabi, and we just thought, oh great, sex is like wasabi. Mm-hmm. Because it's the area of our lives that is so vulnerable. It's so intimate that often what we have is a feeling that if you reject my desires, or you don't want me, or if I try and initiate and it doesn't get responded to, all of a sudden the person in the world that I go to for security of like that I'm lovable and wanted has rejected me, and therefore, it can just touch on the core wound so easily. And then we say, oh, I'm not even going to try, and we build up all these defenses, and they are built up unconsciously, slowly over time, and our primary partnerships just start to wither.
And especially with us, all of us being, basically in the poly lifestyle as well, it's very easy for us to go to the other plants that are out there. They're kind of like, I don't want to call them weeds, but they're easy to grow plants, like tomato plant, right? It's super easy, and it's just there for a season, and then then it's gone. And it's really easy to go to those plants because it's fulfilling what we need in that growth cycle, but it's not the long-term, deep, really subtle type of love that we're looking for within our, deeper, within these deep dives that we're doing in our lives.
Beautiful. Yeah, so our roadmap for today is we want to talk about sexual communication. Oh wait, my list is on here. I'll wing it. The next thing is, can you pull it up? Mm-hmm. The next thing is a fun like practice. You guys have all heard about the bucket list, of course, like all the things that you want to do before you die. Well, Michael and I were playing around, and we've done this for years, which is like a fuck it list, which is all the fun, exciting, like sexual conquests that you might want to have together. So creating one of, a fuck it list, and we've got a template for you to play with. And then also a sexual evolving dyad, which helps the deeper communication. So those are the three pieces that we want to cover before, like, Q&A and talking to you. But one of the key things here is to take this, what's on your, let's start off by saying, take, what came through the meditation or what's actually on your work table list, and know that this is the month to work on that. This is the month to which you're going to shine a light on it and say, hey, maybe it's already shifted. And Michael and I actually went to our work table, and we were like, oh yeah, we wanted to work on our oral sex. And it's something that just by having it on the work table, it's actually really improved in the last few months. But this is the month to do even more deeper work on it.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So is that where you want them to go with like looking at their work table? Is that the first?
It's a first thing to do, but it's also a last thing to do, because next week when we meet in the mastermind, that's when we're going to actually go deeper into what's on the work table. Okay. So I'm planting that seed now. We'll come back to that next week.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You want me to go into the fuck it list? The intention?
Let's talk about communication first. Great. Because, the fuck it list as a playful exercise is really designed to actually create deeper intimacy and deeper connection. We are all so busy. And so sex is something that actually takes, the time and presence. And because it touches so deeply into our core wounding so easily, it requires, like the space, like Osho says, calls it the great button pusher. If you want to like push those deep buttons from childhood pains, like sexuality will bring that up. And sex therapists, what they say is that nobody has problems in sex. You have problems in communication. And so how we, communicate on other areas of the life, whether it's finances or whose turn it is to unload the dishwasher or, whatever, that actually ends up affecting sex, because sex is so, it's so sensitive and it's so core. So our communication in general will affect the sex. But then specifically today, I want to talk about how we talk about sex, because it is, I believe, it's a rarefied thing to talk about and has a different set of rules. I want to start by saying that we all might have different sense of esteem around, like, do you have good self-esteem about being a driver, or are you a bad driver? Like, how's your self-esteem as a cook, or how's your self-esteem as a parent, or, so there's different, self-esteem has different kind of lines of development and different faces and different fronts to it. But our sexual self-esteem is something that is so tender, and it's so dependent on other people. Like, my self-esteem as a driver is really dependent on how I drive. It's like my work to do. But when it comes to sex, Michael and I were talking about how this is no longer personal growth work. This is deep fucking relational bonding work. And it's almost like, like a wing, like you can have one wing that's flying, but if the other one isn't, like, you're going to like fly in circles. And you really have to start to coordinate together if you're going to, like, be masterful and beautiful in your flight. And what happens if you tell someone, hey, flap your wings, you're not doing it right, you suck at flying, like, their wing is just going to wither. And like, we look for each other for like encouragement, for self-esteem in this area. And so the way to actually communicate is really important, to be very nurturing, to catch each other doing what's right, to reinforce that, to like really build. I mean, we know,
give the benefit of the doubt. One of those,
and to actually interrupt the judgments that we have. A lot of times, if you're not enjoying something that your partner does sexually, and then you make it a decision that, oh, they suck at that, or I don't like how they do that, then what you're going to do is you're going to manifest more of that in bed, right? Like, you actually are a huge influence to how they're showing up just by your expectation field, and to scratch that record and show up when he says give him a benefit of the doubt, to show up and be like, if I truly aligned with the highest template of my beloved's sexual expression, like in that meditation, if I could see them as the best lover in the world and show up to them, in every encounter like the God that they are, how transformed the sex would be, as opposed to like, okay, here we go again, this thing that isn't satisfying, or or maybe it's not even about them. Maybe it's like, and I had this one forever, which is like, men don't really know how to do oral sex because, I'm as a lesbian or bisexual woman, like I've had it better by women who understand the yoni, whatever that belief is that I put there. It has nothing to do with how he is in oral sex. It's like my belief that then is not allowing him. So the piece that I really want to encourage, and it's very specific, it's when there's something that is not working on the work table, you have to really look for what does work, acknowledge that. And then look at like, all right, how do I find what's working and expand that and water that? And when we are tuning into the thing that's not working, how do I do that sensitively and with the positive encouragement? And so it's like what we know now as positive psychology, and not just law of attraction, which is actually also true, but this deep, behavioral focus on rewarding, because we are these animals, and animals, Michael's got the fish metaphor.
Right. So you don't train a dolphin by, beating it if it doesn't jump through the hoop. It jumps through the hoop and you give it a fish. And that's the way all animal training and human training is as well. It doesn't, the negativity doesn't work. It doesn't create the growth that that we're looking for.
Yeah. And this is true of all human behavior, but particularly true about our sexuality. And what we know is that one kind of blow, like one negative feedback, takes something like 30 positive reinforcements to actually balance out. But most of the time you say one thing about somebody's sexuality and it's indelible. It's like, ouch, this person that I'm naked and vulnerable in front of has said this thing about me sexually, and it's so hard to let go of.
And then once we have that, it can kind of get into a downward spiral of, and we have that assumption, like we take one comment, for instance, as a as an insult to us, and then we hold that in, and we think we keep feeling that all the time, when we're in lovership or when we're with our partner. That's the kind of resentment that can kind of get stuck, get stuck in there. And so it's important within the communication to be able to start talking about the positives and spiraling back up out of that.
Yeah. Yeah. In the beginning of this course, we divorced our inner critic. And like, I'm going to invite you to have an extra, like, eye for, is there a sexual inner critic that still has a drawer in my house that I need to evict? But really to let go of your own judgments, as Michael's talking about, that like downward internal thing. Let's let go of our own self-critic or insecurities. And there's one more piece I want to share, because I know what I'm saying makes a lot of like logical sense. But what I want to transmit is how it's more than a heady process. Like sex does traverse like the entire ladder of light. And I say that because, like we have the throat chakra and which actually goes to the ears, and the expression, like this is the expression center. And we, say, that the fourth chakra lives in and around the heart. Maybe it's all around here. But really the second chakra, it travels in our eros, which could like travel all the way to like, the sensitive part behind the neck, or, the armpit, or like it is not centered. It's not located in a particular place. And so our sexual self-esteem too, it's hard to like locate. It's like, it's core and it's everywhere. And I want to speak to the feminine condition. I woke up this morning and I was having deep contemplation about what it means to have internal genitals versus external genitals. And one of the things to note, and if you have external genitals, I just want you to like do the thought experiment and imagine this. Like, what if when you were, since birth until you first became aware of your genitals, like you're like, they're there, but I can't see them. I actually can't see what's happening down there. And so what happens at a very young age is you have sensations there, but in order to know that you're okay or that what's going on, you have to rely on somebody else looking at them and telling you what's going on, if they're beautiful or not beautiful, or am I okay? And even if you take a mirror, and get up in there to see there's still a like, I can't see all of my genitals. And so without that physically knowing it externally, seeing it, feeling it, there's a inherent insecurity that's like looking for some reassurance, that you're not broken, or, something's not wrong. And I wanted to like impress you with, like impress your mind with the sensitivity of that. But it's not so much about feminine. I mean, we all have the feminine and the masculine, but it's like, it's that vulnerable. Like, because honestly, sex in general for both, sexes, it's not seen in the world. It's behind closed doors. And most of us are like, how are we doing? How am I doing? I need feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And that feedback's going to come from this person. So we're even more like, any communication about sex is about feedback, is feedback. Like, we're looking, it's kind of like a child who can't see themselves, so they believe everything that's said about them. That's how our sexuality is. Everything that's said about our sexuality, we believe, because we're that vulnerable.
So there's a lot of the healing work around sexuality does involve like viewing the genitals. I know that we have that within some of the practices that we do. Kadoshka is a good example, where they'll have genital typing of the male and the female, as a healing, for us. And we have the opportunity, as conscious couples, we have the opportunity to have that type of healing right within our relationship. And we have an opportunity to have that communication on an ongoing basis because we're aware of it.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, because like look at it like this month, right? So we've carved out this month to make this our theme, that this month you are sexual healers for each other, that you are supporting each other's full expression in sexuality, that you are positively reinforcing each other's sexuality. And the challenge with healing is such a delicate line, because healing means, inherently in the definition, that something's broken, that something's not whole, right? And we're bringing it into the wholeness. And as a sexual healer, a lot of the times I feel I'm working on cultural wounds, as opposed to like, oh, there may not be anything broken between the two of you, but culture is so wounded that, none of us are whole inside until all of us are whole. The piece that's really important in how to communicate about your sexuality this month is this extra deep reinforcement of what does work, what is beautiful, what you do appreciate. And that when you're working on, the sex table thing, like, you want to be coming from heart, resourced, nourished, know that there may be pain or judgment or process that comes up, and to actually hold for that and not buy it. Like just, recently I might have like a PMS rage reaction or something that arises. And we've talked about this last week with the emotional week. It's a perfect preparation for like, hey, the sexual conversation can bring up deep, painful wounds. How do you welcome that clearing And then what you're actually looking at is the highest template of the most divine lover, and drawing that out of each other. Like really believing, hey, this thing, in our case, it's oral sex, and in some of your cases, like we went a little bit general. We could have went into deeper, like, hey, what are you guys working on? And we will bring that into next week. But how do you then look at it from a vibration of solution, not of stuckness of problem?
Deep breath.
So, as an exercise to get us into the intimacy and playfulness of talking about sex, with the awareness of how sensitive this is, and the awareness that this may bring up issues that will then, have the wonderful opportunity to get processed between you both, we've come up with this fun exercise.
Which is the fuck it list, or which is the fuck it list or the bucket list. And yes, the main intention is to bring us closer together, to go deeper, also to learn about each other, to learn what is it that is driving us? What is it that we're, really feeling? The details of it, basically, we're going to provide you with on the Facebook page, but we're going to provide some of the kind of general lists of things that people can do sexually, as bucket list things. What you're going to want to do is go through them individually, and as you go through them, look at the ones that you're a yes to, and the ones that you're a no to, and basically you're going to be checking off, the ones that you would like to do.
You're like, oh, I've done that already. I've done that. Ooh, I want to do this one.
Yeah. Or I've done it and I want to do it, or, I did it partially and I'd like to do it a different way. And if you guys have, things that like, oh, I know I want to do this. I know I want to get a, whatever it is. I know I want to get a glory hole. I was just down at the border down in Mexico and yesterday for the 30th anniversary of I just have to say this because I was down there with there were some East Germans, and they were there for the anniversary of the falling of the Berlin Wall, and they open up the second gate there, and they let the Americans go right up to the fence, and the Mexicans are over on the other side. So people who families are divided are right there together, and I was like, wow, I don't have any family down there, but I know that prostitution is legal in Mexico, and they should set up just like a big glory hole there and what would that be? It's illegal in the US, but it's legal in Mexico, and we should be able to have that.
He hadn't told me that fantasy. That's really funny.
And I know you're just going, wow, this guy's totally off the wall and crazy. And the reason that it is because our environment is not open. We're in this desert of sexuality in our culture, that we can't have a glory hole down at the border fence with, is just, it's terrible to me. So in any case, if you have some creative ideas of your own that you want to do, put those, definitely put those into the list. Then you're going to come back together, okay? And you're going to want to have, basically, you're going to want to coordinate 20 of these things that you get to do.
Yeah, and the coming back together is like, make a date, like have fun with this. Mm-hmm. Be like, okay, let's do our bucket list date. And that might be, let's go to a coffee shop where we have to kind of clandestine talk about this. Let's go down to, lay a blanket out and make a picnic. And
do it in a sexual place.
I'm hearing a little bell and it distracts me. I just want to say, I get that Jonathan has to leave at 11. So we're going to check in with him within the next 10 minutes. So I'm happy you're here to start. But I also want to say that this date is, prepare for stuff to come up as a result of having this conversation. It might be like, hey, I'm really sad that last time we tried this, it didn't work, or whatever motions. The point isn't like, check. Now we're making a list, a to-do list. It's more like, let's really luxuriate in the opportunity to co-create something that we're both yeses to.
Yeah, exactly. So be prepared for that to come up, deep things, because they will, they are going to come up in whatever form that is happening. The final kind of, what you want to kind of get out of this form of exercise is actually a list of 20 bucket list items that you guys want to do together by the end of 2020. So it's 20 for 2020.
Yeah,
so easy to remember.
We're gamifying it a bit, knowing that we're going into the new year, and we together as a group will be meeting through May. So the idea would be wonderful. We're all going to have a list of 20 things that we want to do, sexual things we want to do before 2020, and then we can have a little in-house competition and see who gets the most crossed off their bucket list. I almost said sucket list. Before on May 5th, and then it'll be like a little group derby. So
yeah, exactly.
Now
the prize for the winner.
Yeah, we should have a prize. Any suggestions?
Well, let's work on that. This week, let's think about it.
We'll think about it before next week. I know Greg and Marina have proposed that in May that we do a group retreat, that we all get together. Maybe we'll have a prize for the winner at that retreat.
The prize for the winner gets gangbanged by the rest of us. That's mine.
Okay.
Is that
so? To be discussed, but what I want you to know about the list that we're giving to you is that there's actually two lists. One is pretty standard, like here's a viral Cosmo bucket list, 50 things. And then the second one is an addition, like after that one went viral, here's 69 kinkier, deeper, darker things, supposedly. And if you're like Michael and I, you look at most of these and you're like, these are pretty vanilla, but it still warrants discussion. It still warrants like, okay, like if it says try a threesome, you might go, well, who do we want to have a threesome with? You want to adjust them to their prompts for deeper discussion in your partnership to come up with the top 20 things you want to do sexually before 2020. Okay.
Yeah. And I was wondering about whether we want them to be a challenge or we want them to be easy.
I want them to be authentic. Mm-hmm. So authentically, like if you are fully sexually expressed, if it's going to create intimacy between you and your beloved, what are the 20 things that are most worth putting your time? Your life and sex life is super, super precious. Like don't waste it on things that don't excite you or don't bring mutual value. So
yeah, and this is interesting. I know one of the items on one of the lists is to have sex 10 times during a weekend. And I'm thinking about that for me. What's authentic, what came up for me is that I'd be having more sex if I was, fully expressed. And so I could see that one being one of the ones that I would want to have so that I could get that feeling of being fully sexually expressed. So maybe if there are ones that you see that are like pointing you towards that direction of being fully expressed, those are maybe the ones that you really want to focus on as well.
Yeah. So what you'll find, and we're kind of modeling this, is like maybe for some person the quantity is really important and the other person's like, I just want quality, or there'll be different places in that it's like, wow, we're kind of opposed, like we're in different poles. And the work with this is, instead of going into, well, we disagree on this or we're not compatible, is like, wait, how do we complement each other? How do we support each other? Like, okay, this is important to Michael. How do I show up and not doing anything I wouldn't do or that I'm not a yes to, but how do I show up and handle that difference? And that difference is actually part of the juice of learning about each other and finding the polarity and being able to pleasure your partner even though they're different than you are.
Mhm.
So, all right, I want to move on in few minutes to talk about the sexual evolving dyad. So then I can turn it over so we can hear from you, Jonathan, because you're about to leave.
Yes.
Go ahead.
And I wanted to ask just about the clarity on the homework too. Is it clear?
We'll get
now?
to Q&A in a moment.
Great.
So
Perfect.
I just want to get this in for Jonathan, that the second, and you can watch the rest of the video along with, Greg and, Renee and Todd, who will be watching this. And Kirsten too. Hi, Kirsten. We miss you. Yeah. The last piece of the month, right? So we're going to talk next week more about the work table. And the last piece that I want to offer is the relationship evolving dyad, which we've already given to you as a homework assignment. We're tweaking it this month. Have you ever been to the Chinese restaurant where when you get your fortune cake cookies, you read it, and then what do you say at the end when you say, like, live long and
in bed, prosper?
So you say in bed at the end, and it makes the fortune cake cookies more fun. So we want you to do the relationship evolving dyad and add in bed to every question. So the 3 questions are:
tell me something that you like about me in bed. Tell me something that you think we agree on in bed. And tell me something about yourself that you want me to know in bed. Right.
So we're doing the same.
Not in bed. Don't tell me in bed.
The same dyad, but it's in our sexuality, about sex. So we're focusing now on sex. Even if you don't have sex in bed, you do it on the beach or in a hammock.
Mhm.
The point is, it's about sex. Now, the reason that we're doing the relationship evolving dyad is because it's unconditionally positive. It's not telling me something you don't like about me or that we disagree on, or that it's genuinely reinforcing and educational and creates more intimacy. So really invite you to do that for a minimum, and I'm going to suggest you do it for 40 minutes. That's how the form is done. 40 minutes, no cross-talking. So the only thing that you say in response is thank you. We've done this before. We're just adding the sexual dynamic. So those are the 3 big homework assignments, and we'll come into questions and clarity in a moment. Jonathan, before you leave, will you tell us what's arising for you and what's your takeaway from this week?
Well, first of all, the 3rd question is something you want me to know about you in bed. Is that it?
Yeah. So it's something you want me to know about yourself. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And sexually.
Right now, it feels a little daunting. Like there's a lot of sex to happen before the end of the year.
No, and just to be clear,
the 2020s till the end of 2020. So you actually have a year and.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, I was thinking, wow.
Relax.
I'm glad we clarified that.
It's not a quickie. This is the long game.
Yeah.
Okay, good. It sounds like good assignments. I'm looking forward to seeing the list, which will be on Facebook, I guess.
Yeah.
And I like the idea. Well, I like the idea of the things you want me to know about you in bed and all that, to open up the communication. And I don't really know where Kirsten is at with this, so that will be interesting. And I don't really know where I am with all this too. So it's going to be an exploration, and I'm a little nervous and a little excited about it.
Beautiful.
It's a great place to be.
Yeah, and next week when we talk about it, I invite you to get clarity about, like, well, where am I? So I can show up to next week's call with, like, hey, this is how I can get the most out of the mastermind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, beautiful.
Okay.
Well, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'll see you next week. I should be there the full time next week.
Beautiful.
Yay.
See you next week. All right. Well, we'll keep it open for other questions and comments about the homework.
Right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions or clarifications? Yeah, Greg.
Greg and then Lisa.
So let's go to your example, Michael. That's a great one. I want to have sex 5 times in the weekend. And let's say Kamala Devi's a full yes for 5 of the 10 times. How do you work out when there's a discrepancy with like the couple's desires? And any tips on how to like find the green zone for both?
Yeah, great. And you said it right there, which is what we're looking for is the mutual yes. So how do I repin?
Yeah, I'll get it.
So what we're looking for is you don't want to dive into a weekend and have discrepant expectations and then find that out halfway through the weekend, because then you're going to have a weekend to process. Instead, and this is actually really beautiful meta teaching, to the degree that we can align our intentions, it not only creates like more of a ritual in any lovemaking setting, but it like dopes us in the direction of winning, as opposed to oh, now we're going to have an expectation violation midway through something where you had one, I had the other. Like, you want to go in like musicians on the same sheet of music. You don't want to like, hey, let's start jamming, and all of a sudden you're doing jazz and I'm doing like elevator jazz, and it's not, it's cacophonous. It's like, wait a minute, that intention, let's set an intention for this lovemaking or for the session or for the play, and that intention setting up front. If ever I'm in a ritual and someone says, I had this one time, I had a client say to me, I have the intention of whole body orgasm and multiple whole body orgasm. And I'm like, okay, I can't actually align with that intention. Like, I'm not going to be like, let me please you and give you that, because that's not a yes for me. So how do I, at the very outset of whatever that ritual or session is, say, where can we meet? Where is our Venn diagrams overlapping? And then once we get a yes there, and if you spend the whole session negotiating your expectations, that's more valuable than trying one person crossing their boundaries or the other person being disappointed.
I was going to use the example that you just talked about, Greg, which is like, let's say we went into the weekend and my intention was to have sex 10 times and she wanted to have sex 5 times. And so before we went into the weekend, we said, well, let's do it 7 times. Well, that's not good, because I'm going to feel like I didn't get what I wanted, because my goal was, 10 and I only got 7, and she's not going to feel good because she only wanted to do 5 and now she's done, 7. So the intention has to be around the deeper reason for what is happening, the deeper intention of getting closer together,
right,
and all of that. And so that has to be worked out. That's the gold of the exercise, is not the actual doing of the thing. And
in this case, I might say I'm not going to agree to any number, because I don't believe that I can't pre-commit my body to being a yes a certain number of times. Like, I might say, like, I hear that. Now, what else can we do? How else can we do that? Can we include, hand sex in that? Can we include, can we count it when we do self-pleasuring? What if I do 5 times and you do 5 times self-pleasure? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so there's a conversation that's creatively allowing for both of us to say, now we have a plan, and this is a hell yes for both of us, so we can start the practice. Yeah,
exactly. And was it Greg and Lisa?
Lisa had a question.
Lisa.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify for the 20, or for the fuck it list exercise, that we're focusing on the couple. And so when we're looking at yeses or nos individually, is that Like, is that just things I've experienced, whether or not they're with Greg, and then we go through as a couple, and then we focus on things that we have or have not done as a couple?
Okay, so good. There's a confusion between what you have done and what you want to do. And I want to clarify this, okay? Pause for a moment.
Yeah.
So yes, the traditional bucket list is, oh, I've done that, right? And it may very well be like, okay, everybody right now, raise your hand if you are part of the Mile High Club. So let's see who's part of the Mile High Club, right? So some of us go, okay, well, I'm part of it, but I'm not necessarily part of it with my partner, right? So would I like to have sex in an airplane with my partner before 2020?
End of 2020, yeah.
End of 2020, before 2021. And the answer, if it's a yes, I'd love to do that. That'd be fun and worthwhile. I'll circle it, right? Or I'll note it. And then what'll happen when when we come together is, so I've circled all the things. It doesn't matter how many things, all the things that I want to do with my partner. And I'm not even counting, not considering whether or not he wants to do it, and not considering whether I've done it before. I'm just all the things I would want to do with my partner before 2021. Now, I come with my circled list. He comes to his circled list. And by the way, there's two ways of doing this. You can do the separate homework and then have a date, or you can show up together and be like, okay, we're going to talk through every one together. And that's going to take a lot longer because you're going to have to identify, am I a yes or no? And then, but you can do it either way. You've got your date, and the objective of the date, if you get through it in one date, is to say, let's find all the things that we're both a yes to doing, whether or not we've done it before. Because Michael and I'm certain, have had a vacation where we've had sex 10 times in one vacation, but we haven't done it recently. And Michael said to me, he's like, we never intended, that was something that happened, but we never set out to do it. And I want to do it with the intention of doing it. And I said, okay, cool. Let's talk about that. Right. All right. The point being, now we're talking about those things, but we're looking for the 20 things that have the most charge, meaning the most excitement. So by the end of the whole thing, you might have, you might average every other thing, and you might have a list of 40. And I'm like, you know what? Narrow it down to the ones that are most exciting for both of you.
And the second phase of doing it together is really the important part, because that's where we're learning about each other. Not so much the actual, even before the doing of it, is this part of fleshing that out, and really that's where we're really learning, like, why do I want to intend to have sex 10 times? Like,
what need is that meeting?
Yeah, let's unpack that. And now she's learning about me. It's like, oh, okay, got it. I'm really getting that about you, and I'm learning about her.
Right. And I might be learning about my judgments on him for that. Right.
Yeah.
Be like,
especially this glory hole on the border in Mexico thing. It's like,
I'll have you guys know, I have given Michael oral sex in a glory hole. So like,
yes. And that's why I was so interested in it yesterday, is because that happened.
Think about, just for a moment, think about how disgusting it is. Like, who else's cock was in that hole? And my mouth is right there. Like, but thank God we had the playa dust to sanctify it all. All right. That's a great question. Lisa, do you feel like we addressed it? Yeah.
Great.
Other questions or thoughts?
Yeah.
Greg,
did you have a question?
No.
Back, baby.
Okay.
When we're, yay. All right. Who else? I can't see you guys, is my problem. So
yeah, we can see you now.
No, can you? Okay, fine. All right. I want to open the floor in gallery so that I can see if there's anyone else having comments or questions about the three things we discussed. How to communicate about sex, and that's generally around your work table thing. How to move through the bucket list together, and then also finding 40 minutes to do the sexually evolving dyad. And that's anytime this month. and as more often you guys do these dyads, you guys, I promise, the more value you'll get out of them. I believe it's a power tool. I really, really can't emphasize enough. Michael and I have had many discussions about the need in these structured communications, for not cross-talking. Do you want to?
Yeah. So one of the things that I can imagine, because it's happened in my life, is talking about what I want, and then feeling like I can't really say it, because if I do say it, I'm going to get some flack back from Kamala Devi or whoever I'm talking with. So when you do them, not having crosstalk, some of the exercises will, things like the some of the exercises will set a timeline where we don't get to talk about it again for 24 hours or 48 hours. And those are all possible things. But the bigger picture is really about the intention of bringing your partnership closer together. And I know that the temptation and all of the training that we've had is about being real, about being true. But there's something within that, like even in like nonviolent communication. I've seen even teachers of nonviolent communication using it as almost as a violent tool.
Yeah, any tool can be a weapon when not used right.
So for me, what I would recommend is really keeping to that, the highest and most beautiful intention. And by doing these exercises, all the other stuff is going to come up. It's going to come up anyway. You don't need to like define it with a magnifying glass and bring it to the front, the things that are conflicting. Just by doing these 3 exercises and doing it in a loving way with the intention of bringing your relationship, together, especially the one about working on the things that are working, and doing more of what is working and the things that we really do love about each other. Mm-hmm. All that other stuff is going to, believe me, it's going to come, it's going to come there, but it'll come to the surface, but it's going to come to the surface without scars being put in place about the communication, in the way,
another point to reinforce what you're saying. One of these authors that I've recommended, I have in my recommended reading list, he wrote the 7 Habits of Successful Marriage. And what he said is, like, we've been doing this with the work table, solve the solvable problems. Put your attention, like, hey, we can actually solve this. Let's put our attention there. And there's a degree to which, like, don't focus on the unsolvable problems. When there's things that feel like they're these core incongruent, core challenges, mutually exclusive needs, like, take your attention off of that, solve the things that you can solve. And by finding those wins, and as things, it's almost like a puzzle. Oh, I love this example, because you start with the corner pieces and you're like, oh, I could do the edges, and then other stuff. Like, it's impossible to do the puzzle, the hard part of the puzzle first and then the easy later. It's like you want to do the things and get the wins and get the confidence, and the picture will become clearer, and then there'll be a way, and all of a sudden you'll be like, wow, I really, through the practice of seeing the divinity of my beloved, get that it's like my beloved is really divine, and it wasn't just a practice. It's really what's happening.
And those unsolvable things that we just can't see a solution for them with our partner, a lot of times those things, they're not problems anymore. We don't even see them as problems. We don't have to solve them because they've changed, they've morphed into something that isn't even a problem anymore. And I know it's hard, it's impossible to see it from this place, but once we've gone through the work, that's been my experience.
The other part that's impossible to see is sex through the lens of the mind. So right now our platform is this video we're all kind of tuning into these teachings. This week more than any week, well, it's always this way, like this is the map, but we need you to go into the territory, do the work in your relationship. But talking about sex is not sex. And talking about sex from the mind is actually just so removed. So take the elevator down, for this date, and come into the heart and like approach the list, approach your beloved from a deeper place, because like what the mind says about your sexuality, you're going to be actually in a parts conflict. So I invite you to take the elevator even down into the body, like into your cells, into your sensuality. And when you read the list, it's not like, oh, that sounds like fun. It's like, can you feel it in your body? As like, would this, you feel it and you feel your partner, like, would this enliven us? Or would this like challenge us? And maybe the challenge is enlivening, so you want to do it, but you don't want to say like, ooh, that would be a fun story, or that's a neat thing to check off, or, it's more like, wait, use your sexual intuition, because this is very deep work.
Yeah. I'll just say it because it just came up for me, but the idea of actually self-pleasuring while imagining and feeling these things is a form of sex magic that I'm probably going to do. I'll do that. I'll be thinking about these things and doing sex magic and self-pleasuring to see how much juice and how much is really there with them as well.
Yeah, and our erotic fantasy and desires and pleasures. There's a book called The Erotic Mind. We highly recommend. What's the author's name?
It's Jack Morin. He
articulates the best right now in the field about how our formative, like our understanding of the world as we're forming in our childhood and our first experiences really indelibly imprint how we are as erotic beings now. I mean, it's something we all know, but that book articulates it brilliantly. And then he also brings up 4 pieces.
Yeah, he talks about the 4 kind of drivers of our sexuality. And the 4 are longing and anticipation, right? Violating a prohibition, right? So that's the taboo, right? Searching for power. So that power differential, can be exciting for us. And then overcoming ambivalence. So it's, and that's one, but overcoming ambivalence or changing, it's a changing of the relationship.
This is what
those are all exciting.
I told Michael, I'll say this, and then we're going to open it up for closing comments, but like, this ambivalence thing is so hot and they're all really hot when you track what turns you on. Your turn on is going to be in the combination of those 4. But like just this weekend, James and I had a date, and I was like, yeah, I don't think I want to have sex. And then it was like that ambivalence of, are we going to have sex? Are we not going to have sex? I said I didn't want to. And then all of a sudden it becomes really hot because you're like on the fence about it. And I recognized that ambivalence in me, which he's really familiar with, but like it comes from being gay. Like when I was 16 years old and I was in love with my best friend, and I was like, ooh, I shouldn't have lesbian sex but I really want to, but I shouldn't, but I want to. And it wasn't just the taboo, it was the ambivalence that made it hot every time. So.
And for me, when I learned this map a few years ago, I had like no connection with this anticipation thing. And then I started feeling into the anticipation, and it became kind of my biggest driver for this past couple of years, is just anticipating, having a date with someone. And even if I never even had sex with them or had that date, I got all of that, sexual, energy put through me just with the anticipation itself. It was beautiful. I really, really enjoyed that.
Okay.
So.
Okay, so let's open it back up to gallery so we can hear your takeaways I think the homework assignment is pretty clear. So we know what everyone's to do. We'll actually follow up and reinforce that in writing. But I want to hear what's the most valuable thing you got out of this week. And if you can remember the order we went in before.
I can't remember
it doesn't matter. Just tell people the next.
I think James started though. I do remember that.
So we're going to start with James, then we'll go to Sharmila, and then we'll do Greg and Marina.
Okay.
Yeah. No, leave it in galleries. Fine. Okay. Go ahead.
I don't believe that was the order, but that's fine. I think, well, I don't know offhand in terms of what was the most valuable thing. I think what I'm most looking forward to is hearing what Sharmila's bucket list is. She doesn't tend to be someone who likes to engage in fantasy ideas. So the idea of actually having a list of things to just go through and be like, oh, that sounds fun. And see what gets circled.
Awesome.
Those circles I get to stick my penis in.
Okay, so I'm curious. I just have to ask this: if anyone's had a threesome on an airplane?
Not yet.
All right, just wondering. Mila, Sharmila.
Sharmila. Okay.
What's my question?
What's
your takeaway from today?
Can you come back to me?
Yeah.
Sure. What about you, Greg and Lisa?
Greg and Marina. Oh, we said Greg and Marina, and
okay.
then we'll go to Greg and Lisa. Okay.
Greg and Marina.
First of all, I really appreciate the context of how sensitive this can be, and how, the Osho quote about you really want to find some triggers, then this is the way to do it. So I really appreciate the sensitivity. I'm also feeling how the fun, playful, exciting anticipation and taboo and all those 4 things that you talked about could be related to the bucket list.
Mm-hmm.
And also how that could be therapeutic and transformational, and also how the dyad kind of wrapping this whole long-term goal of having these fun, playful things that are on our bucket list, but also having the dyad process to process whatever comes up, because it does seem like stuff's going to come up because of discrepancies and different needs and stuff like that, and just personal things that we're all working through. So I love the trilogy of the whole process, and I'm looking forward to doing it experientially.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you.
Marina?
For me, what stood out is really the idea of deepening into the reinforcements of what works, and sprinkling on that gratitude and highlighting what we love about each other, and then starting where things that really light us up. Yeah.
Sweet.
Beautiful. You look very Roman today, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
You look like a toga.
It's winter time here in the East Coast, so I gotta create it in my own mind,
Yeah. Okay, got it. Nice.
Greg and Lisa.
Yeah, Greg and Lisa.
Well, I know for me, I think mine is similar to James. I'm very curious to see what's on Lisa's list. Because historically, that's expression of fantasy is not something that she does. So, yeah, I'm curious to see what's on the list.
I am excited about talking about what works or has worked. We're not actively exploring and doing a lot, so talking about it would be good, and paving the way forward would be good. So I'm glad he's excited about the bucket list, because that would be fun. And yeah, I like the in-bed diet. That's really freaking funny.
Good. Thank you.
Alex and Tal.
There's finally a reason to actually build that wall. It's just so we can international glory hole.
Yeah, we're with Trump. Yeah, you and me, Alex. Sorry about the word.
We're voting for him. Alex and I and Michael here are going to spearhead the international glory hole. I'll be honest. So, and then, yeah. So, sex is always interesting. Alex said that she felt like we're at a disadvantage because there's not much left that we haven't done. The threesome on the airplane. Pretty ballsy.
Trying to fit 3 people in an airplane bathroom's ballsy.
With the flight attendant, though, it has to be.
Yeah, he says bathroom. You can get a lot done, like with blankets when the lights are off.
Yeah, yeah.
What's that noise?
I don't know. I'm feeling kind of overwhelmed right now because of like what my fantasies might be. It's like, well, what of my fantasies do I actually want to keep as fantasies and not as real life because of all the stuff that can come along with them, especially because some of them are very extreme. So it's like, okay, like, do I really want to bring that out of the fantasy realm and into reality or not? So I'm just a bit like, oh God, where is this gonna go?
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a deep one. Really, thanks for bringing that up as an inquiry. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then we're going to come back to Sharmila.
My first statement is the bathrooms in the first class are a lot larger. So you might need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably fit 3 people in there. Yeah, I feel like my takeaway is actually more around like looking at the the underneath of the whys of things, like when you were saying, you know, as opposed to it being a compromise, like finding the place that like you're actually meeting each other sounds fun to me. Like because there's a lot of things that could be fun or not fun or what, and I find that like sort of inconsequential in a lot of ways. But the finding of the like how and why we're meeting is more interesting.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, it's, you know, so my kind of closing statement here is like, you know, we in this unique circle, you know, are really committed to sexual energy as a spiritual life force and as a, you know, as a path really towards enlightenment. I feel resonant with this group. And I actually had a revelation this weekend around how, in order to sustain polyamorous connections, we have to, it requires a getting out of the sexual ego. In order to actually live in this fashion, we must, some part of us know and maintain an understanding that love is bigger than us, sex is bigger than us. It's not to be monopolized by just one person, that's squandering, like that our eros and our love belongs to the universe. And in order to be on this path, some part of us has that knowing in our being. And so coming from this place of knowing that this is high medicine and every sexual act is like it's a high ceremony, and yeah, we can have casual sex, but the profane is also sacred. And I'm speaking into that because we are going to have a casual, playful conversation with the Cosmo list that can be kind of banal in some ways. Like, you're going to look at these and some of them are like, have sex with your eyes open. You're like, okay, you know, yeah. And yet, hold everything on the list as like, this is a sacred reminder. What is it underneath that's going to bring more merging with the divine, less identity with the ego? Because ultimately the biggest wound on the planet and in humanity is the wound of separation, the sense that we are separate from other. And sex is the most direct way to merge and experience that we are actually in one, in oneness and with our beloveds, and ongoingly, like, we have access to that medicine. And so take this whole month as an opportunity to say, like, this is a spiritual, and I say spiritual, but I mean not higher than, but all the way down, all the way in. This is a directive to experience my whole self, my God self, and, and the holiness and the divinity of this partnership. So I bless everybody with graceful communication. And in the moment that you get triggered, because you will get triggered in this exercise, in the moment that you get hurt or you remember your wounding, how quickly can you come back to love? Because it's not about not getting triggered. It's about just coming back into love and remembering why we're doing this, which is for wholeness.
And to say all of that in a simple sentence, just go grow your fucking wasabi, guys.
Yeah, cultivate that wasabi, water it and tend to it and make it bloom.
We are the wasabi growers, you guys. We can do it.
Mwah, love you. Bye.